Toshi was the humble wise man on the rise. Their admirers believed they exemplified perfect love until their relationship crumbled. Contrary to popular belief, this Hollywood breakup is unique. For a long time, Lisa Bonet didn't tell her husband Jason Momoa about this. The revelation of such a terrible secret shattered the idealized portrayal of the couple and revealed something far more sinister. Once you figure out what it was, you'll understand why it's terrible, not merely sad. An illusion of tranquilly, Lisa Bonet and Jason Momoa's relationship was once picture perfect, silent but stunning to onlookers. Being both imaginative and nurturing, enthusiastic and composed, they appeared to complement each other well. Along with Lisa's ethereal, introspective nature, Jason's towering stature and rugged charisma were a perfect match. They were living proof, in the eyes of the public, that two divergent realms, the famous and the reclusive, could merge to create something bigger. Their romance seemed to be the epitome of the Hollywood dream, a union of spirituality and glamour. However, surface fissures existed long before they were noticeable to the naked eye. The chemistry between these two was palpable, commenced residing in distinct mental realms. Lisa, who had always preferred to keep to herself and her roots, found herself caught between the allure of Jason's sudden stardom and her desire for solitude. Lisa had always complimented Jason's eccentric personality in a mysterious and intriguing way. But the pressure of public scrutiny, from more than just the cameras, became apparent to her over the years. The weight of an unspoken truth was too great for her to bear, and she couldn't bring herself to speak it. Sonia's circumstances, their relationship widened the already enormous chasm between them and their adoring fans. There were underlying issues that had developed in their apparently ideal relationship, but the truth would emerge in the end. Freedom and stardom come at a price. Jason's work skyrocketed along with the demands of his overnight fame. A world of high-profile openings, red carpets and magazine covers beckoned to him, promising him greater influence, notoriety and wealth. As Lisa continued to lavish praise on him, Jason felt more and more disconnected from the reality she had created. The media's incessant curiosity in his work meant that they closely monitored even his most casual interactions with his co-stars. Jason was photographed on multiple occasions enjoying pleasant public appearances with celebrities like Amber Heard and Emilia Clarke. Tabloids allegedly used Lisa's photos to spread rumors, even though the pictures probably didn't show anything bad. Lisa allegedly got tired of playing the good wife card. The line between his professional and personal life was blurring, and Lisa began to lose faith in him over seemingly innocuous things. The pros and cons of Lisa's fame had always been well documented. Being in charge avoided the limelight in Hollywood for a long time prior to her meeting Jason. She preferred to devote her energy to her family and her spiritual development. Although she cherished her solitary existence, she began to worry that she couldn't keep up. She no longer had as much privacy as she had before. Jason's meteoric climb to fame brought him into the limelight and the scrutiny of the public eye. Being in the limelight all the time was bad enough, but the isolation it brought was the worst. Millions of people loved Jason, but Lisa was lonely and confused about how to reconcile her past self with her present self. Lisa began to confront a painful reality about her relationship with Jason once the cameras stopped rolling and the fame began to fade. His public displays of love for other actors, and his flirtations with them were not mere harmless moments, they were betrayals, not just to their relationship but also to the trust they had built up over time. She had consistently supported Jason in his endeavors, offering words of encouragement and best wishes. On the flip side, she felt even more isolated due to his fame. Despite their public appearances, tensions were rising behind the scenes in their relationship. Because she was still unable to tell herself the truth, Lisa endured an existence of silent agony. Years passed before Lisa finally figured out her secret. As the days, months and years ticked by, the relationship was supposed to help her feel better, but after all the deceit and performance, she was sick of being invisible. The suppressed emotion finally broke her. It seemed like the deceit was finally getting to be too much, and the truth was going to come out eventually. Fights involving the stories would inevitably break out, and they would often be extremely heated and filled with hurtful language. Lisa and Jason would have to confront the accusations' painful reality. The weight of Lisa's unspoken fears and betrayals would hang over every conversation. Jason would express his remorse and pledge to rectify the situation during those instances. However, the faith that had previously united them began to crumble. Every assault left an indelible mark on Lisa, no matter how much she tried to put the past in the past. No one could see how isolated Lisa felt in the midst of all this mayhem, and that was hard for her to accept. She put up a united front and concealed her flaws, which made the inner turmoil look worse. As time went on, her identity began to crumble. Her singularity was once defined by the uninhibited joy and expression of her art. In her moments of solitude, she would question whether the continual agony was truly worth it. She felt comfortable enough to write down her true feelings and thoughts there, without worrying about what others would think of her, so she did just that. A destructive pattern. As time went on, the pattern became all too familiar. Scandals would be brooded about, sparking arguments that looked suspiciously familiar. A never-ending cycle of broken trust appeared to be the pattern with each new betrayal. Lisa confided in a friend, "I felt invisible," and with each betrayal, the hurt intensified. The most painful betrayal, though, was the one that came to light in 2019 when Jason's on-screen romance with a co-star during filming of C went viral. People close to Lisa say it was the first real sign of mistrust, but Lisa didn't think much of it at the time. Their arguments over nothing changed even as Jason's business took off. While they were supposed to be leaving the Golden Globes together in 2020, Jason lingered to speak with a famous model, and Lisa publicly lost it. His charisma had worn off on everyone except her, and he was constantly looking elsewhere. Not only did Jason's behavior hurt Lisa, but other things as well. She wanted to maintain their good name, but it was difficult to cope with his repeated mistakes. She felt an even heavier burden as a result of the external pressures she was already dealing with. The same deceit continued to transpire as if it were routine. Afterwards that year, Jason went on a Hawaiian vacation with his co-star. Lisa could sense that tension was building between them, despite their smiles. After Jason returned home, Lisa immediately informed him of her observations. A hint of excessive attention or flirting was all that was ever presented as proof. Even after he apologized, the damage had been done. The same thing was happening again and again to Lisa. Fights broke out more frequently, and peace efforts appeared insincere. Lisa allowed herself to hope whenever Jason promised a change, or that he would change, but she knew deep down that her hope would be fleeting, and that nothing would actually change. The betrayals would occur once the fissures reopened. After a short while, Lisa realized that she was the only one in the relationship. She still loved Jason, but now it was more of a drained commitment to a relationship that never felt truly hers. After they were together, spending the evenings alone wasn't nearly as exciting or fun. The monotony of her physical and mental suffering, along with the incessant nagging question of how much longer she could maintain her mask, consumed her thoughts. In 2021, Lisa skipped all of Jason's major work events. His fans were ecstatic when they learned he would play Aquaman in the film. Hello, Lisa retreated even further when she experienced joy. Their final Instagram post together as a family concealed the pain that lay beneath the surface. In contrast to Jason, who was encircled by admirers, friends and co-stars, Lisa felt like a ghost. In an unusual interview with Interview magazine in 2022, Lisa discussed her emotions. A rare glimpse into the quiet storm that had been building beneath her calm appearance was revealed when she said, "Learning to be authentically me has been the most painful lesson." Ultimately, she stated, "I was sick of it all." These succinct yet comprehensive words encapsulated the immense difficulty of enduring an emotionally draining relationship for an extended period of time. No amount of apologies or promises would have been enough to undo the harm that had been done. Lisa had come to the painful realization she was unsure of her ability to continue because it emotionally hurt her too much. For a long time, the base's cracks remained hidden. At last, they had become too glaring to disregard. The realization hit like a ton of bricks. The relationship between Jason Momoa and Lisa Bonet deteriorated over the years. A heartbreaking struggle for survival had replaced what had been an exhilarating and passionate love story. While their early days as a couple were exciting and glamorous, they were now burdened by the weight of unresolved conflict and betrayal. Because Jason's affairs occurred in real time, sometimes in front of witnesses, word got around. With each new accusation and rumor, she couldn't help but compare her former flame to her estranged partner. On an emotional level, it was oppressive. There was no way out of the situation, because of the vicious cycle of fighting, accepting each other, and then making empty promises of change. As the house sat empty for hours on end, Lisa had to accept the reality that their relationship was hopeless. The weight of an unspoken secret, and her partner's refusal to acknowledge its existence, were an ongoing source of stress for her. A muted, oppressive apathy predominated, rather than love. There was no longer any hope for Lisa's recovery. She was now terrified and had given up hope. This insight was not a huge deal or something that appeared out of nowhere. The truth is that it was the accumulation of minor hurts over the years that made the major one more difficult to bear. It was then that Lisa realized there was no use in trying to mend their broken relationship. They skillfully crafted the public narrative to make it appear like they both wanted to end the marriage, which is a normal part of any family going through changes. When they announced their split in January 2022, by describing their relationship as a revolution in the midst of transformation, they managed to make the breakup seem like a philosophically justified and inevitable event. Those with close knowledge of the couple, however, noticed the problems before they were public knowledge. Unseen by others, Lisa had been bearing a heavy burden behind her thoughtful remarks. There was never a major scandal involving Lisa's secret that garnered media attention. It was considerably more cunning than that. The weight of knowing that Jason's actions had already severed a sacred bond, the gradual erosion of trust that had grown over the years, was weighing heavily on them. Amidst the media's fixation on their public persona, Lisa's loved ones began to reveal that she had been grieving for far longer than anyone had realized. She attempted to remain composed, but the mental toll had finally taken its toll. The truth, that the family was exhausted behind their flawless facade, was never revealed to the world. Although they hadn't planned to end things amicably, the couple's mental neglect and infidelity had finally taken their toll on their relationship. Lisa's private breakdown, the slow disintegration of her hopes for a future with her lover, was completely different from what the outside world would eventually learn. She gradually crumbled, leaving behind a mere shell of the strong woman who had stood by Jason's side. Only those closest to her witnessed her break. Upon reflection, the combined event, it was announced to the public. Even though Lisa pretended to be calm and she had been grieving privately for a long time before she confided in anyone. Underneath all that silence was the truth. It was more than simply the dissolution of her marriage. It was her final opportunity to release her grip on the past. A great distance had passed since all that they had endured, and all that she had relinquished. Yes. Nonetheless, Lisa was aware of the reality. She had endured sufficient hardship, and now the moment had come to depart. Consequences and dashed hopes following their breakup, Jason Momoa entered a new phase of his public life, focused on relationships and his efforts to alter people's perceptions of him. He used to be the center of attention solely due to his charisma and charismatic appearance, but now even his private life is in the limelight. It appeared as though he was eager to prove that he could easily move on from the breakup by forming new, increasingly public relationships. The actual cost of the breakup was substantially greater than what was reported in the news. For those who had witnessed the disintegration, the impact was more than a split. It was complete devastation for love and, among relatives. Jason's incessant romantic exploits, an attempt to numb the agony of his dissolving marriage, were ultimately unsuccessful. In his pursuit of fame and love, he had sacrificed something far more valuable: the trust of the woman who had stood by his side for countless years. Their breakup was gradual and painful, but it became crystal clear when they were alone, away from pride. His attempts to present himself in an idealized light frequently obscured the emotional fallout, but his closest friends and family could see through his facade. The betrayal, the unspoken pain, and the gradual disintegration of a relationship that couldn't have survived the burden of such continual lies. In contrast, Lisa Bonet remained even more discreet. Lisa preferred solitude, away from prying eyes, while Jason sought solace in the hub of activity. But despite her solitude, She bore the weight of a terrible secret, a reality she had buried for far too long. Their relationship was deteriorating because she had withheld important details from him. As time went on, the world continued to revolve around Lisa and her famous life story. Nothing was spoken by Lisa. Despite her composed demeanor, she had a tale to tell about a woman whose love was sapped by the unending betrayals in her relationship. In addition to the breakup of her marriage, she was distressed by the fact that she had loved a man for a long time, who despite his fame, had treated her like an afterthought. No one saw or heard the true price they paid for their years together, and those who were only privy to the glamour would never have understood. There were silent moments of unfathomable grief behind the scenes, and each one left an indelible mark. The end of Lisa's relationship wasn't simply a change in status, it was the culmination of years of self-sacrifice, emotional weariness, and unacknowledged pain. The verdict had been handed down. Lisa spent a lot of time alone because she was in a relationship where she felt obligated to be there rather than connected. Staying in the marriage was what her loved ones expected of her, so she did it despite her feelings of emotional and mental isolation. Jason Momoa appeared to possess all the desirable what with his towering stature and irreproachable attractiveness. When no one was looking, he was a lost soul. Too often, he missed her as his thoughts strayed from her and their life together, the pressures of his career and his public persona. No one ever hit or yelled at Jason because he was nice and gentle. What he did abandon, though, was far more destructive: his mental detachment. He hadn't been physically present for a long time, his mind was elsewhere, and he appeared to love everything except the woman who had been his constant companion. Rather than one infidelity or betrayal, it was the constant drone of neglect, the way she was disregarded and abandoned, and the absence of her former companion that ultimately tore the relationship apart. Lisa had to silently cope with the shame of these flirtations, which diminished her self-worth, and they weren't just poor choices, they were part of a routine. Her silence was only deepened by each magazine cover that glorified Jason as a hero or detailed his sex life. Lisa stayed put despite a single terrifying incident. Actually, she had been avoiding showing her pain for years, and her departure was the final straw. At family gatherings, she was the reserved one who sat quietly behind him, and on her birthday, she celebrated alone. In what seemed like a flawless relationship, she was the one who got lost in the shadows. Lisa Bonet wasn't secretive in the typical sense, but there was that one occasion when she just gave up. This time, it wasn't just an emotional breach, it was the long-awaited culmination of years of building truth. Reportedly towards the year's end of 2021, Jason attended the London No Time to Die red carpet event apart from Lisa. The fact that Lisa had discovered a pair of somebody texted Jason, though indirect, they were near enough to shatter what little faith remained after it had begun to crumble. Lisa overheard him having an intimate conversation with a cast member of his show. Cian received sexually suggestive messages. There had been similar situations in the past, but this one was unique. With effortless confidence, Lisa kept the rumors from revealing the truth. Cunningly, she concealed it. She stood up for the ideal of a happy family, and Jason's reputation for the benefit of their children and the world at large, so that everyone would perceive her in her idealized state. She allowed herself to be held responsible and endured her pain in silence. By doing that, she shattered her inner calm. Lisa kept a lot of things under, including her relationship with Jason. Additionally, she concealed the reality that she endured excruciating mental anguish on a daily basis, cognizant that no one else could perceive her struggle. She battled for something that wasn't there anymore and carried the relationship's mental weight for a long time. She committed to an unjust relationship that had become her own. Because she had loved him before and claimed his children as her own, she kept quiet about it. She remained silent because she had faith in the assurances they had given her. They had gone to such lengths to establish a positive reputation that she refrained from speaking out for fear of damaging it. That was when she realized without a doubt that Jason Momoa had changed into someone different from the man she had built her life with, and from whom everyone else had been singing his praises. She had known the person they held in such high esteem before they put them on a pedestal. At that precise instant, she had a profound realization: she had lost interest in him. Their creations were gradually ripped apart by the whisper of truth that arrived at the reckoning, rather than a colossal explosion. Not a secret, but what ultimately tore them apart was the truth that Lisa had concealed from him for so long. She had been abandoned by her husband, and no amount of devotion could alleviate the emotional anguish she had endured as a result. Unfortunately, Lisa Bonet kept this secret from Jason Momoa during their marriage. Worst option. Silence that slowly kills you or betrayal that you can prove. Put your thoughts into the space provided. Pleasure to have you join us in viewing this film. Looking forward to seeing you in the next film.